Shalom, shalom. Be with you in just a moment. We're still dealing with some technical difficulties, but we're about to make progress here. So hopefully we'll be in this teaching in just a moment. My forte is probably not technological issues, but I think we're making some progress. Thank you for joining us. It's been a beautiful Shabbat morning, and I pray it is, or Shabbat evening if you're in the Far East, in Australia, South Africa, some of the places, Israel, England. I pray it'll be a beautiful Saturday evening for you, a Shabbat for you. And I pray you'll be at shalom, at peace. You're watchful, and this will be very real, and yet your sense of calm and your understanding that the world works the way it works, but the kingdom works the way it works. Those understandings will be in place. So, with that being said, let's get started with our parsha. We're a little later than usual this morning. It's parsha number 37, and we get to engage with these beautiful, life-giving words of Torah. The Torah is not a book like any other book. The Torah is something far different. The Torah is a book that it actually is a recounting of the actual words and thoughts and inspirations of the creator of the universe. And so it brings with it, the Torah brings with it a sense of energy, inspiration, empowerment, and life into your being. And so it doesn't just impact your mind and cause images to pop up into your head. It actually begins to activate something deep in your spirit. And we're in parsha number 37 of 54, so you see we're over halfway now. Shelach, Lecha, go out, send out for yourselves. That's the name of the parsha, and it's Numbers 13, 1 through verse 15. Let me try again. It's Numbers 13, 1 through 15, 41. I have sort of given a subtitle to our discussion today, but beyond just being on our meditations on Parsha 37. It is, why are you downcast, O my soul? This is a psalmist question, and another psalmist question follows it from a different psalm. Whom shall I fear? So why are you downcast, O my soul, and whom shall I fear? These are psalmist questions. One thing you learn about the meditations of the Torah is that you are to become a psalmist. And the psalmist knows how not to react to situations without first processing them through conversation, communication with the creator of the universe. And that's why he develops psalmist questions. There are so many others. The first psalmist question, as you probably will remember, is why do the heathen, or why do the nations rage? Why do the peoples imagine a vain thing? And they take counsel with one another against the Holy One. Why? That's the first psalmist question. And then there's a series that goes on to saying, who may ascend the hill of the Holy One? Who may enter into his holy place? So this is the kinds of things. Do you have psalmist questions arising in you? When you read the Torah, it should awaken psalmist questions in you. And it should also awaken a passion and a fire to see the will of God done and to see the beauty realm begin to come from heaven into the real day activities of earth. So why are you downcast, O my soul, is a psalmist question. Whom shall I fear? These are not complaints. These are not in any way some sort of cynicism or arrogance or sarcasm. This is true. Why are you downcast, O my soul? And whom shall I fear? This is what we're going to discuss in Parsha number 37, Shelach. The theme of this book of Torah that we're in, the fourth book, which is Sefer B'Midbar, also known in the Western world among my English-speaking friends as the book of Numbers. And what this book is about is the faithful bridegroom king of heaven training and testing his diplomatic corps of Kedusha and Chokhmah, which is holiness and wisdom, and shalom-filled people who are spreading those things and testing them, training them in the hot and harsh wilderness areas of life. So we're in a training ground. We've had boot camp pretty much at Sinai. But now we're in Special Forces training. This is to really get ready for our deployment. We have to have more specific training. So the faithful bridegroom king of heaven is training and testing us, his diplomatic corps of Kedusha and Chokmah and Shalom, who we are supposed to spread those things in the world. He's testing us as to how we are doing with those things. And he's doing it through the hot, harsh, and difficult wilderness. There's a sub-theme this week. If we're going to be his faithful witnesses of Chokmah, Kedusha, Shalom, peace, wisdom, holiness, if we're going to be his faithful witnesses, then there must be an understanding of what our weaknesses are and overcoming process of those weaknesses. So this week in the Parsha of Shelach Lecha, what the Holy One's going to do, beloved, is push all the triggers and pinch all the pressure points. He's going to do so in a way that will not be comfortable to us, and that will stir up in us whatever remains of our slave mentality, our victim identity of the past. And he's going to stir those things up in order to expose and weed out a group of people that are not going to be with him through the Kedusha, Chokmah, Shalom spreading mission and task that's been assigned to us. Something will distract us. So he's going to expose and weed out the traitors. Traitors, the traitors. He's going to weed out the saboteurs, even the well-meaning ones who just can't get this right and will not reject the things of the flesh and the pseudo-intellect and the world to be able to keep going in the right direction. He's going to weed out the traitors. He's going to weed out the saboteurs. He's going to weed out the loose cannons among us. Those who just go off on a moment's notice, who knee-jerk react to stuff, who just do things their own way. The loose cannons will be exposed and weeded out. He's going to weed out the lone rangers among us. Those who just want to do it their own way, don't want to get involved in the community, don't want to be involved in the greater plan, just want to do things their way and make everybody else watch them and be amazed by them and be kind of prima donnas in the whole process. Superior, greater than thou, holier than thou, all those sorts of things. He's also going to weed out those of us who are slaves of fear. Fear is going to be the key factor of Parsha Shelach Lecha. We are going to have to deal with our fear. Now, as he's weeding these people out, as he's exposing them first and then weeding out this large group, he's thinning the herd, so to speak. He's nailing down the people who will be his faithful remnant. And in doing so, the maxim comes up that the Master taught us, many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. So the question will become, before we get deep into our discussions, are you just one of the many, beloved? As you're listening to this today, or as you listen to it on the playback, either on this forum or on YouTube or some other forum. As you're listening to this, the question is being asked from heaven to earth about you. Are you just one of the many who is called? Or are you one of the few who will respond, who will be faithful, and who will be chosen? Are you just looking for a ticket to heaven and maybe a small pond social pool where you can soak and heal and get attention and fit in and or find a friend or two? Is that what you want? Are you just going to heaven or just having a social group that you can hang with and feel like you're part of? Or are you Secret Service material? Are you Special Forces material? Are you ready to be empowered? Are you ready to be inspired? Are you ready to heed the messages from heaven and the sound of the true tone and the shining of the pure light? Or is the world just too much for you? Is its appetites too much for you? This is Special Forces training time. Parsha Shelach begins a series of weeks of Special Forces training. Nobody said it would be easy. Life is not easy. Nobody said the kingdom of heaven life, serving the king, being part of his diplomatic corps to bring Kedusha and to bring holiness and to bring Chokmah, wisdom, instead of folly into the world, was going to be easy. Nobody said that. It's not easy. If it were easy, it wouldn't prepare you for the real life challenges that you're going to face in your next deployment. your next activity, your next assignment. And if you were not prepared, if you're not going to be part of this, in putting you out there would not just put you at risk. Putting you in front of the adversary and in front of the challenges of this life would not just put you at risk. It would put others at risk. And it would perhaps put your children at risk, which he will not tolerate. It would put your grandchildren and your legacy and your bloodline at risk, and he will not tolerate that. It would even put, perhaps, at least on hold, the mission. He would put the mission at risk, or at least put it on hold for a generation. And he is not particularly excited about that. He wants to find out early. He wants you to find out early if you're part of the many or if you're part of the few. So he's going to expose and weed out the traitors and the loose cannons and the saboteurs and the lone rangers and those who just can't overcome the fear, won't overcome the fear by using the protocols he's trying to get us to follow. So he's going to want you to know, think to yourself, what are your triggers? What triggers your flesh? What triggers your pseudo-intellect into gear? What kicks your fear into place? What kicks in your emotional trauma and your drama? What paralyzes you with indecision, with over-analysis, with emotional outrage and overextension? What are your triggers? What are your pressure points? Where can the adversary or somebody in the world, or just the times, where are you most vulnerable? Where can they begin to feel those pinch points pressuring on you, causing you to overreact? What is your tipping point, and how close are you to it? What is your breaking point, and how close are you to it? What causes you then, on the other hand, what causes you to dig deep within yourself and within your encounter, relationship, interactions, communications scheme with the creator of the universe? Dig deep within yourself and embrace his energy, embrace his mission, embrace his calling, embrace his discipline, and then seek support from him, from your family, from your tribe, from your clan, and from one another, and move forward even in the face of challenges. What are those? Those are the questions. Now, I want to deal with, I guess, another subtitle. This parsha is about dealing with the fear dragon. The fear dragon, the dragon of the fire-breathing creature that somehow is so frightening, he's supernatural, and that's how we think. The giants, you figure the giants in the land being the fear dragon, or the imagery of giants in the land being the fear dragon. What's your fear dragon? What are you afraid of? The Holy One is the light of my life, is my light and my salvation. The question of the psalmist is, well, then whom shall I fear? Of whom shall I be afraid? But the question of the pseudo-intellect is, how can I get out of this? How can I escape? Well, here we go. This is the issues of the psalmist questions versus the pseudo-intellect questions. Now, here's the issue. The dealing with the fear dragon in specific, in context, it will be whenever the report of the spies, it comes back, 10 of the spies that are sent out to the Holy Land will come back and they will say, we saw giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in their eyes. This is from chapter 13. We won't get into it right now in a few moments. As he exposes, as the creator of the universe uses this season that we're in, the times, the seasons that we are going through, the heat of the summer in the northern hemisphere, the cold of the winter in the southern hemisphere, the experience of the political realm, the experiences of the moralists that are going back and forth and fighting over one another about who's right and who's wrong about these social issues. When all that's going on, whenever violence is erupting in your cities and in your towns and in individuals and in schools and wherever it may be, as all this is taking place, this is all designed to expose and weed out the traitors and the saboteurs and the loose cannons and the lone rangers and those who cannot or will not face and overcome their fears in the ways the Holy One has designed us to, that are among us. So the question will become, are you going to, you, brothers and sisters, are you going to stay on course and mission through this all, or are you going to be intimidated and frightened off? Question 2, will you listen to and follow the instructions of heaven? Or will you insist on doing it your own way, the way you think is right in your own eyes, or the way your culture or your ethnicity or your generation has told you is right? Will you listen and follow instructions from heaven, or will you insist on doing it your way, your culture's way, your ethnicity's way, your age group's way, your peer group's way? Third question, will you embrace the king's disciplines? The disciplines are the key to survival. The disciplines are the key to overcoming. The disciplines are the key to overcoming the fear. Will you embrace the disciplines of the king, or will you just go through the motions, if at all? Will you embrace them as your lifeline, or will you just go through the motions and do the minimum amount to try to get yourself to heaven, or to stay in some community group that makes you feel better about yourself and your life? Fourth question, will you work together with others in the kingdom as a team? Or will you demand to be the center of attention, or demand that they follow you? Are you a team player? Because you must be a team player. We are all interconnected. We are all dependent upon one another. We need each other. But most people, a lot of people these days, want to be independent. They just don't want to be part of the team. Next question, will you have one another's back? Will you love one another, guard one another, cover one another? Will you have each other's back? Or at first sign of trouble, will you abandon or turn on or sabotage or betray your brethren? This needs to be found out, and the wilderness testing is where we find this out. The season that we're in, the tragedy, the tribulation, the traumas that we're going through in this world today, this is designed to find out if we're going to have each other's back, or we're going to abandon and turn on and sabotage or betray our brother, our friend, our neighbor. Next question was going to be presented by this parsha. Will you endure hardship and suffering as a good soldier? Or when the going gets tough, will you just lay down and quit and die? Next question, will you bring honor to the king and to the core of the kingdom group? Or will you allow disgrace to enter in on your watch? Will you be ready, willing, and at your best when you are needed most by those around you? Or will you be distracted and engage in a folly of your own? Will you go AWOL? Or will you just collapse under the stress and cry victim? And finally, when others fall and bail out around you, when everyone else seems to be failing or leaving or quitting or giving up, will you stay at your post? Will you stay on alert? Will you stay on task? Well, we're going to find out that of the 603,550 men over the age of 18, not counting Levi and its tribe, of those 603,550 men that came forth and came to Sinai, only two out of 603,550 are going to answer those questions. Their lives will answer those questions through this test in the wilderness as saying, yes, we are among the latter group that will stay on post, on alert, on task through the problem. So with that in mind, we have a few more minutes. Let's do our call to worship, our barachu. It's our blessing before we actually read from the Torah. And so here we go. Would you sing with me if you know it? If not, just listen. You may want to close your eyes. You may want to lift your hands. You may just want to sit quietly. But here we go. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher bakar banu mikol ha'amin. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Amen. And so the concluding words from the scroll last week, the parsha known as Be'alotka, the last verse was Numbers 12, verse 16. And it said, V'achar nasu ha'am mechatzarot. An English translation might be, and afterward, after these things, there were some other things. After these things, the people lifted up from Hatzarot, which was the place of Miriam's leprosy, as it's called. She was the first case in Hebrew history of a Metzora, and the first case, obviously, of a Metzora being restored. So this is Hatzerot. And afterward, the people lifted up from Hatzerot, V'yachanu b'midbar Paran, and they pitched camp in the wilderness, that is the whispering, desolate watershed called Paran. Paran is our scene. That was from last week's Parsha, where we ended off. All this is a sequential revelation. I'm not trying to tell you whether it was chronological in this presentation, but it is sequential in its revelatory form. So, the opening words of our Parsha this week that begin this issue of the fear dragon, introducing the fear dragon, comes like this. It's Numbers 13, chapter 13, verse 1. And here it goes. Va'adaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, which of course in English means, and then the Holy One spoke to Moshe, saying, and he said, Shelach lecha anashim, send out for yourselves men, ve'aturu eretz Canaan, and let them surveil, investigate, explore the land of Canaan. Asher ani noten livnei Israel, which I am entrusting, giving into the hands of Bnei Israel in stewardship. That's how it all starts. Now you know the rest of the story. This is one of the most familiar stories in the Torah. It's at the center of the story of how we are trained by the Creator of the universe. This is one of the tests of the wilderness, the most significant test of the wilderness. It's the crucible of failure. And here's what's going to happen is we're going to fail. So it starts off with the Holy One speaking, saying, send out for yourselves men, let them surveil or explore, tour the land of Canaan, which I am entrusting to Bnei Israel in stewardship. All right. Now there is a backstory to this. It's fascinating when you read that there is another way of looking at this that's been given. Actually, Moshe was keeping a diary. Moses, as he's known in the Western world, was keeping a diary as he's giving this revelation, as this revelation is unfolding to him. And so his diary is found in Deuteronomy. And it found particularly the one I'm talking about right now, the entry of the diary that I'm talking about, around the first day of Tammuz, the fourth month of the year, biblical year, in the year of the transportation out of Egypt, the year after that. Moshe had a diary entry, as it were, and it's found in Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 19 through 20, and I'm going to skip 21 as I read this next portion and go on to 22. So it's chapter 1 of Deuteronomy, verses 19 through 20, and then verse 22. And here it is. Moshe's diary says, and this is the backdrop, or the backstory to what we just read in Numbers 13:1. Here's the backdrop. Here's the backstory. After we departed from Horeb, or Sinai, we traveled through all the great and terrible wilderness which you see on the way to the mountains of the Amorites. And as the Holy One our God directed us, we went up to Kadesh Barnea. As the Holy One our God directed us, we went up to Kadesh Barnea. And I said to you, behold, this is the backstory. Behold, Moshe said, the Holy One your God has set the land before you. Go up and possess it as the Holy One, the God of your fathers, has spoken to you. Do not fear or be discouraged. This is the backdrop he wants to give us. That's chapter 1, verses 19 through 20 of Deuteronomy. Before the sending out of the spies, before the Holy One speaks, this is what Moshe had said to Bnei Israel. Behold, the Holy One your God has set the land before you. Go up and possess it as the Holy One, the God of your fathers, has spoken to you. Do not fear or be discouraged. And then verse 22, but you all approached me and said, let us send men before us, and let them tour out the land for us, and bring back word to us of the way by which we should go up, and of the cities into which we will come. Now that's the backstory. Back to chapter 13, verse 1. But now you know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. And then, with the backstory in place, and then the Holy One spoke to Moshe, saying, Shelach Lecha anashim. Go ahead, send out for yourselves men. Ve'aturu Eretz, Canaan, and let them surveil, explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to Bnei Israel in stewardship. So, remember, this is all part of a test, and the Holy One is allowing us to do what we wanted to do, to send forth these spies. Meraglim is the word we'll learn in Hebrew. It says these touring people, these explorers into the land. This is a proving ground. He's allowing it as part of his greater test. What is this test? Verse chapter 8 of Deuteronomy tells us clearly, remember, the Holy One your God led you all the way 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and to test you, to reveal what was in your heart, whether you would keep his instructions, his mitzvot, or not. So he humbled you, and he allowed you to hunger, and he fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor your fathers know, in order that he might make you know that man does not live by bread, material substances alone. You're going to see something that would be like bread. He's going to show you amazing grapes. He's going to show you fantastic figs, and he's going to show you the precious pomegranates of the land. A little alliteration to give you the idea. But man cannot live on the basis of seeing beautiful fruit alone or bread alone. Man must live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And no matter how beautiful the bread, how sweet and fragrant the grapes, the amazing grapes, or the precious pomegranates, or the fantastic figs maybe of this world, it is the words of the living God that will sustain us. Remember, that's our test. That's what's going to be tested. So thus far, we have already dealt with certain things. We have dealt with flesh negativity. We've dealt with neighbor negativity. We've dealt with pseudo-intellectual negativity. We've dealt with leader negativity, when the leaders start to overanalyze and get all up in their heads and get all up in their opinions, like and Miriam and Aaron did, and like Yehoshua did. Even Yehoshua got into this. Whenever the Ruach, the Spirit, fell upon the elders that were selected, the 70 elders were selected, and Medad and Eldad were in the camp, and they began to bubble over with this spiritual reality of life-giving things coming out of their mouths and out of their lives, and they began to prophesy, as it says in English, Navi, to begin to come forth. Nava, to bubble forth with the spiritual thing. And Yehoshua took offense at that. He got pseudo-intellectual about it. And he wanted to rebuke them, and he came to Moshe about it. And Moshe said, oh, the stuff we think we know. Oh, the stuff we think is going to be so important to us, and the intellectual stuff we get into. But how much that's irrelevant to the kingdom. So we've learned with flesh negativity, neighbor negativity, pseudo-intellectual negativity, and leader negativity. And here we are, as begin Parsha Shelach Lecha, and we are still standing. Pretty much 603,550 men that were at Sinai are still with us pretty much. Indeed, what you don't know without more backstory is that we've made it to the southern boundary of the land of promise, the land of milk and honey. We have just flown through the rest of the wilderness. After leaving Hatzerot, we went through, according to Numbers 33, we went through 18 stations, just flew through them. Not a single problem anywhere. We seem to have got this thing right. If you read through Numbers 33, 18 through 36, you can count them, 18 separate stations. We had to stay 2 days, 3 days. We didn't stay long because we hadn't had much time. But we kept flying, and no problems, no complaints, no neighbor negativity, no pseudo-intellectual negativity, no leader negativity reared its ugly head. It looked like we had this thing nailed. We had it down, and we thought the testing was over. But the testing is not over. The testing is just beginning. We haven't made it yet. We're almost there, but we haven't made it yet. The bigger tests are waiting to come. It is our time to experience the same tests, basically, of flesh negativity, neighbor negativity, pseudo-intellect negativity, and leader negativity. Same test, but at a higher level of difficulty, a higher degree of difficulty. So here we are at Proving Ground Phase 2, Wilderness of Paran. You remember whenever we read that portion from our scripture this week, the first lines told us where we came to. We had left Hatzerot, and now we've come to Wilderness of Paran. Paran, Whoa, that name should stir up some memories in us. See, all these place names that were given are not just historical nature. They are designed to activate remembrances, to bring to mind certain stories. And the story that this wilderness name is supposed to bring to us, say Bamidbar Paran, the wilderness or the desert of Paran, that's supposed to stir up a memory to you. And you should, by virtue of being a student of Torah, regularly a student of the Bible, that you should know this story very well. What happened at Paran? Where is Paran in our narrative, going back to Genesis? Well, it's an interesting thing. It's where Hagar ran to whenever she left with Ishmael. When Hagar and Ishmael were sent out and they were headed back toward Egypt, they came instead to the wilderness of Paran. And when they got to Paran, the water ran out. And it appeared to Hagar, the mother of this young boy, this young upstart boy, that he was going to die, and she did an unthinkable thing. She put him under a bush, and she walked away, got as far away, she could barely see what's going on. She left the hungry, thirsty, starving young child. She abandoned her child to die. And she went because she said to herself, I can't look upon it. I can't bear to look upon it. Now, what mother do you know would not take her baby, dying baby in her arms and hold it as long as possible and comfort and console the child? But Hagar did not. Hagar did the unthinkable, and she walked away from her child. And she sat down away a stone's throw from this baby and let him cry and die, as so she thought. But that is not the way the story ended, is it? In Paran, something miraculous happened. An angel of the Holy One appeared. And as the angel of the Holy One appeared, he began to open a well, or show her an open well that was Be'er Lahoiroi, the well of seeing, the Holy One sees her. Well, but we are there, and we are in the same place where that all took place. That should see, what's going to happen to it? Which line of thinking are we going to engage in? Which line of approach and response and responsiveness and care for our brother and care for our young ones are we going to engage in? Are we going to follow the Hagar methodology? Are we going to just walk away and lay down and let everything just die? Or are we going to get up and follow the angel? Are we going to begin to trust the Holy One again to do what he said he's going to do? Well, we're at Paran. Welcome to the Hagar and Ishmael level crucible. And here's the question. Do you fear death? Do you fear death? This is the tipping point for most of us, the thinning the herd crucible. If we're afraid of death more than we love God, more than we love his plan, more than we love his will, then we are among the called, but we are not among the chosen. This is the great tipping point, thinning the herd crucible. So how will you respond when what you fear most in life, which is usually death or something that would cause you great pain, how will you respond when what you fear stares you in the face? In Hagar's situation, it was seeing her child die. How will you respond when what you fear most stares you in the face, and when even the elders you trusted go rogue on you? In this case, Hagar. Well, this is the parsha of the sin of the spies, or the Chet HaMeraglim. Meraglim means footmen or walkers, walking men. They are all leaders. They're all elders. They're all important men who we have counted on and have trusted. And we're going to find out that 10 of the 12 are going to turn out to abandon us, like Hagar abandoned Ishmael. Now, each one is a prince among us, a leader, an elder. Each one of these Meraglim, and so we're going to have Chet HaMeraglim, the sin of the spies. We're going to have other words that we need to know in this parsha, and one will be tur, T-U-R, or Tav, Vav, Resh. To go to a place, to travel about in it, to explore it, to search out its essence. Then we're going to get the word debat. Debat, Dalet, Beit, Tav, is to spread a slander or defamation, to speak out of the pseudo-intellect and opinion. That's a debat based upon not based on the plan of the Holy One or the will of the Holy One, but upon the mindset of the human being and his opinions, his ideas, his pseudo-intellectual concepts. That's a debate. And then we'll have yirah, the idea of fear. Fear, dread, reverence, subconsciously assigning weight, importance, and gravitas to something or someone. We are called to define and face and overcome our fear response. Fear is just an involuntary, emotional, neurological, and biological fallen flesh response. You can't make fear not happen. All you can do is deal with fear. Fear is an involuntary, emotional, neurological based, biologically based, fallen flesh reaction to something that we see or something that we hear or something that we hear about or something that we imagine or something that we feel, which that we interpret, or our pseudo-intellect begins to make opinions about it, thinking it carries a threat suggestion, a suggestion of imminent occurrence of something very unpleasant or dangerous or threatening to us. So that's what fear is. It's just an involuntary response. You can't stop fear. What you can do is begin to manage it according to the disciplines of the Holy One and keep it focused what he wants us to do that displaces fear. Basically, there's a quote that I like. It says, "Life is found in the dance between your deepest desire and your greatest fear." I'll repeat it. Life is found in the dance between your deepest desire and your greatest fear. That's where life is. That's where you begin to come really alive, or you will suffocate and die. Fear is an electrical, emotional response to a disconcerting stimuli. I know it's scientific words, but here's the idea. Something happens, you see it, and your flesh reacts to it. And you begin to go through a fear response protocol, which, again, if you know the fear response protocol, you can stop it at any given point and begin to apply the disciplines of the kingdom to it and begin to stop it from getting deeper and deeper before you start talking about it, before you start whining about it, before you start getting analyzing it. Well, anyway, so it's this emotional response, or this electrical emotional response to a stimuli. And it is part of your body's self-preservation mechanism. It's like fever. It tells you that there's something going on. There's something wrong you need to address. Or like the sensation of pain. It's not the horrible thing that you think it is. It's just something you need to deal with. Fear may be rational. Maybe a reason for you to be afraid, in this natural realm at least. It may be irrational. You just may fear or be phobic. You may be paranoid. But whether it's rational or irrational, it still has the same emotional process and the same electrical process to cause the same things to happen in your body. And if you let it run its course, it will paralyze you and it will kill you. Fear is not something you can wish away, though. It is real. Fear is not something you can wish away or that you can just banish with a decree. It is something you must displace, something you must override. And it takes mature, uncompromising love to override that fear. The kind of love that casts out, displaces, overrides fear. You must love something or someone on the other side of the fear gauntlet that goes, if you look through the fear gauntlet that faces you, and you see on the other side someone or something that you love more than you're afraid of what you see in the realm of the fear gauntlet. Something in the unseen or yet unexperienced realm that you want so badly that you're willing to go through the fear gauntlet. Now that is what happens to override fear. Now, who is supposed to be afraid of whom? We are not supposed to be afraid of them, of the world, or what the nations or the kings of the world. Why do the nations rage, and why do the peoples imagine a vain thing? We're not supposed to be afraid of them. As a matter of fact, in Exodus 16, in the song 15, in the Song of the Sea, one of the things that in prophetic utterance we spoke is the people, I mean the people of the world, will hear and be afraid. They will be afraid. Sorrow will take hold of the inhabitants of Philistia, and then the chiefs of Edom will be dismayed, and the mighty men of Moab, trembling, will take hold of them. All the inhabitants of Canaan will melt away. Fear and dread will fall on them. This is what we sang out of our own spirits. It came out of our mouths. That the people of Canaan are going to melt away. Fear and dread will fall on them. It says, by the greatness of your arm, they said in this song. We said in the song of the sea. By the greatness of your arm, they will be as still as a stone. And till your people pass over, O Holy One, till all the people pass over whom you have purchased. And then Joshua 2:9, we find that it's the case. The spies in that case go into Jericho. And Rahab, the harlot there, is hiding us. And she says to the men, I know that the Holy One has given you the land, because the terror of you has fallen on us. And all the inhabitants of the land are faint-hearted because of you. For we have heard how the Holy One dried up the waters of the Red Sea for you. Now, who's supposed to be afraid of whom? Well, that's the psalmist's question. The Holy One is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Well, I want to move a little further now. I want to get to the issue of fear. Do we love the Holy One? As we get ready to close our session, because we're a little bit late. As we get ready to close, what is going to happen is obviously the 10 spies are going to come back, and they're going to have the amazing grapes, and they're going to have the precious pomegranates, and they're going to have the fantastic figs. If all we're relying upon is stuff to look at, we would say this is what we want. But it's not the stuff that will get you through the fear gauntlet. The fear gauntlet is we all may die. Those people are giants. They're all heavily armed. You know, they're hiding in these walled cities. We can't get through them. This is the fear factor that's going on. And the love of luscious, precious pomegranates and fantastic figs and amazing grapes is not enough to get us through that. Here's what is, if it is at all, the love of the Creator himself. Our passion for who he is, and our desire to walk with him and do his will. As Yeshua said, and the psalmist talked about it, and the writer of Hebrews spoke it, I have come to do your will. I love to do your will. I delight to do your will, O Holy One. The doing of the Holy One's will casts out all fear. The hunger to be with him, to walk with him, to be wherever he is. You know, and we talk about the focus of the season being, wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people. Your God, my God. That was the whole issue of going into the book of Ruth. We had it Shavuot. But here's the story. If we're going to say, wherever you lead, I will go, sometimes where he leads us, we places our flesh, our pseudo-intellect, our emotions, our fears do not want to go. But he says, fear not, for I am with you. And his being with us is all that really matters. Well, Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you next week. Hopefully we won't have technical difficulties at the beginning of next week, and all things will go much smoother and faster. Amen.